quickly, let's do some VT corner. Coaching changes, portal news. We've got a bunch of it. I will start with both Kyron and Pop are coming back to the team. Did you ever see a world where we'd get both of our quarterbacks back?
Yeah, because that's like normally how college football works. It's very normal to have a quarterback who ends up getting injured. The backup comes in and plays well. The injured quarterback gets better in the offseason, comes back for his senior year. And then the guy who would then be, what was it? He would come and start his junior year. That's very normal college football. And the transfer portal has completely poisoned that idea. I think a lot of people's worries about this are from there's one side of you that says quarterback competition is good. And that's true. There's another part that says, oh, do we want to be paying for two guys? I don't know how much money either of these guys are really commanding. And I think with the $20.5 million of NIL and plus whatever donations on top of that, I don't think financially it's too big of a pull for Virginia Tech. I think it's just a net positive all around. I'm curious to see what Pop looks like in this bowl game. And I know we don't normally say that about bowl games, but this is a very good Minnesota defense that should be pretty up to snuff. And he'll be throwing to a lot of the guys that he'll be throwing to next year in the wide receiver core. So
yeah,
there's a lot of practice left to practice in this case. So we'll see. And also the transfer portal is a 365 thing. So it is never set in stone.
I would say the idea that we're getting both of them back is surprising in this day and age. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. Yes. I'd agree with that point. Yeah.
I just figured one of them would be like, you know what? I don't want to mess around with the competition. I'm going to this other team. I want to start whatever. This is great for Virginia Tech to get both of these guys back. How much we're paying them, I don't know. How much they could command, I'm not sure. But to get this competition is good. Now, here's the key, Sam. Next year, when the season starts, play the right guy. And I think that we've seen enough good from both gentlemen that if both are fully healthy, they could both be the right guy. They could. But they're very different styles and very different ways that they operate on offense. And so all I'm going to say is Tyler Bowen's got to get it right. And if both of them make it to fall camp. Now, because we could see, spring happens, there's a clear guy who's ahead and the other guy leaves. But for right now, I'm very excited to keep the talent in the room. We still have Davy Belfort and the two freshmen coming in. So we have 5 guys for 2025 right now. And I do like the fact that we're going to be fostering some competition. We did fire 3 staff members late last week. You and I have not had a chance to talk about this on a podcast yet. We discussed the possibilities, but not the actual thing. So defensive coordinator Chris Marv is out. Offensive line coach Ron Crook is out. And strength and conditioning coach Dwight Gall is also out. Were those the right firings in your mind? Is that enough?
It is
for the season we just had.
I think it makes sense. I don't know if it was the only course of action. I think different people are going to have different thoughts about what the right course was. I will say this, coaches these days need to check 3 boxes. They need to be able to recruit. They need to be able to develop talent, and they need to be able to be forward facing, right? They need to be a promoter of the program, get people excited about the program, the shaking hands and kissing baby stuff. Ron Crook really didn't check any of those boxes, right? He was not recruiting at a very high level at all. And he brought in 2 portal guys and neither of them saw the field, right? The talent didn't get better year over year. And he's not the kind of guy you're going to throw out there like you would a JC Price, let's say, for media and for public relations purposes. So I just think it made sense from that standpoint. Nothing was really working. And that's not to say that Ron Crook can't coach offensive line. He's been successful in the past, but it just wasn't working here. Chris Marv, I think, is a guy who checks 2 of those boxes. He's a guy you can throw out there for PR relations, a young guy. I think he could recruit to a point, not an ace recruiter by any means, but he was getting guys who could play. Was not developing talent, though, especially at the linebacker room. Those guys just hadn't improved that much. Brought in a transfer at Mike, didn't really work out there. It just wasn't working.
And too many late game failures.
Right. And that's
Pride hinted at that, not even
Mhm.
hinted. He mentioned that during the presser.
Yeah, I think that's probably it, because if you look at Virginia Tech's defensive metrics year over year, they actually improved greatly. I don't know if people are familiar with Sharp Football, who's a big company that does a lot of football analytics, and NFL teams will contract them out. They had Virginia Tech as the number 10 defense in the country in certain areas. The fact that Virginia Tech was rated so high and still had these late game collapses kind of just shows how egregiously bad they were at some of these late game adjustments. You look, Vanderbilt, they weren't prepared for that game, and Vanderbilt ran the same plays on them all game. Rutgers ran the same play on them all game long. It's on our YouTube page. Coach Holmes did a breakdown of it. The same play, we couldn't fix it. And we had the guys to fix it because they ended up defending it pretty well against Georgia Tech. So you had the guys to fix it. You just didn't make the adjustment in game. Miami, you couldn't get a stop in the fourth quarter. Syracuse, you couldn't get a stop in the fourth quarter. And it was the same play over and over and over again. It was an RPO with a slant down the middle. Couldn't stop it. Duke, busted coverages to start the game. Guys were not ready to play. It's just like the game prep and the in-game adjustments were so bad. I don't think you could really rationalize keeping that staff together.
And second halves in particular, if you go to Doug Bowman's tweet that he had regarding the second halves and just the way the defense performed in relation to the first half, it's shockingly different. And we know that we had problems in third and fourth quarters this year. That's not a mystery. But if you actually look at the statistical analysis, it's incredible how poorly we managed to adjust throughout the year in the second half on defense. As far as finishing out, was this enough change? Are you satisfied with the amount of change? I think that I am, because of the strength and conditioning one, because I kind of figured like the third firing would have been Stu Holt, to be perfectly honest, and maybe that will still get shuffled. But when you fire your strength and conditioning coach, it recognizes a bigger picture change is needed. Like that because that guy is with the players so much. And it's not a schematic thing. It's a mentality thing. It's a strength thing. It's being able to hang tough in the fourth quarter, which we showed an ability not to do. And so to me, when I saw the Galt firing, and it's no disrespect to him, that was like, okay, I'm hopeful that things are going to change.
The changes seemed very pointed and very strategic, right? It seemed very addressed at the late game losses. Right. The reason the defensive staff wasn't working out wasn't because the defense was bad on a whole. It's because situationally the defense was bad. Why was the situationally the defense bad? Well, schematically you couldn't adjust, and also guys weren't conditioned. I mean, look at that Vanderbilt game. The guys were gassed. First game of the year, you're gassed. I don't care how hot it is outside. Like you can't lose a game because your guys have their hands on their hips the whole game. And so it seemed very pointed from the defensive side. And I also think the offensive line, like I said, it just wasn't working out. I'm a little bit, I would be surprised if this is the last moves we see. Brent Price hinted at it. I think it will happen. I think you're going to have some shuffling here or there. I'm going to assume that the reason Stu Holt is still on the staff is because of tight ends. I've been very good. And I think you can much more easier bring on an analyst for special teams.
Yeah.
And so I think in this modern day where you can pretty much have as many on-field coaches as you want, I don't know if firing a guy who is good at his position coach job is going to really help the team as much.
And that's part of the reason that Marv is gone too, is because not only did the defense play discombobulated a lot, he's the linebacker coach. And we continuously claim, despite having guys who came on strong at the end of the year, and Caleb Woodson and Jaden Keller, that the linebacker play has been lacking for the better part of 3 years. And he was a young, inexperienced coach. And if he's not recruiting that well and his schematics aren't that good and his position isn't that good, It's an easy
Yep.
decision. It makes
Yeah.
the decision easy. Now, I know it was very hard for Coach Pry to probably do that, but at the same time, it's kind of a no-brainer when you really break it down to get rid of Chris Marv. I don't think Tyler Bowen goes without blame. I do not. Because every year we talk ourselves into another quarterback that, oh, this time it's going to be the one. And Kyron Jones had a worse statistical season than he did last year. And everyone thought he was coming back and going to lead us to this top 25 offense. Well, we were 50th in scoring. And I think after the championship game, 67th in yards per play with everybody back. Injuries be damned, Sam. That's not good enough.
Yep. No, I would totally agree. I do think the issues offensively seem more fixable. I think there was one, I think the offense had more games where they played good than the defense did for the whole game.
Okay.
Over the last 2 years. And I think offensively, I felt like the issues were more easily addressed than defensively. Defensively, it felt like the whole operation collapsed. Offensively, it was missing a couple, like Kyron missed a few throws beginning of the year. You made the change on offensive line. I don't think it is without strategy that you keep the offensive staff when your best recruiter is offensive and probably your best position coach. And Elijah Brooks is also offensive at the running back position. I think that is part of it too. So I don't dislike keeping Bowen for that reason. Now you do have to make some serious changes though, because again, similar to defense, there were too many games where the game plan going in, you just scratched your head. It was it was wrong from the start. So I am curious to see if they bring in an analyst offensively to help them with game planning. They've mentioned Bruce Arians for a GM role or GM. I shouldn't say GM role, for a advisory role.
Advisory, yeah. Same thing with Bud Foster, right? On defense.
I'm curious what they get from those positions. From Bruce Arians, from his perspective, he is an offensive guy at the highest level. Do you lean on him a little bit more if you create that point of contact? Pete, this is, I meant to bring this up if we talked with Billy Ray, and then two, I'll ask you, because they haven't hired anybody for these positions, right? Because I guess we can talk about who they might. Brent Pry went out of his way to say that Bud Foster was going to be on as an advisor to this process and be helping find the new DC. Is there any chance that we get a Dick Cheney situation with Bud Foster where he says, I have scoured the globe for your next defensive coordinator and I found him? It's me.
It's me. No, I do not think so. I don't think Bud's coming out of retirement to be the DC. He has an office in Merriman and he's been around. I think that will continue. He's not going to be the DC, but will he help the DC? Will he have a say in who the DC is? Absolutely he will. And that new defensive coordinator better take advice from Bud Foster if he's willing to offer it. And I think he will, because I think he may have a more significant title going forward. That being said, there are some candidates that are out there. People have mentioned Bob Shoop, Mike Houston, Poindexter from Penn State. I don't know who it's going to be. It better be someone who has some experience calling plays. It better be someone who's not 32 years old, because I don't want some newbie again running Virginia Tech's defense. We've done this 2 times in a row with J-Ham and Marv. No. And even if they don't have a ton of experience calling plays, I need recruiting acumen. I need experience, straight up experience. You need to be 40 plus. I'm sorry. You probably do, because we cannot mess around with this. We need someone where the floor is pretty damn high.
I'll tell you right now, I feel like if Virginia Tech is paying less than $1 million for their next defensive coordinator, it's probably not an experienced enough hire.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, like, just that's going to be a good gauge for fans when you see that contract come out, because it needs to be a home run hire. Like, it needs to be a home run hire. Hitting singles is not going to help at this point.
Mhm.
And I'm a little bit worried we haven't seen Virginia. Like Virginia Tech as an athletic department hasn't been in this particular situation for a while, because after Bud Foster, Justin Hamilton was the guy in the wings. He was handpicked after Bud Foster left.
Yep.
You didn't have to go out on a DC search for him. So Virginia Tech hasn't been in this position where they have to go shopping for a big time coordinator. And now they have to go shopping for that big time coordinator and his position staff. And at the same time, you probably need to supplement your offensive staff. I brought this up in our chat earlier today, and not to switch to the other side of the ball so quickly, but it does feel like Brent Davis has a fast track to the offensive line job.
It feels a little like that, yeah.
That's kind of my thought there.
I would be not surprised by Brent Davis getting the offensive line job, but I can't say that I wouldn't be a little disappointed because he's been here. I just think if you go down the hall for multiple of these hires, which strength and conditioning, there's a lot of buzz about Jarrett Ferguson getting that job. And that's who's running our strength and conditioning going into the bowl. And obviously Davis is handling the offensive line right now going into the bowl. If you're going to just go in-house for 2 out of 3 of these hires, like shut the whole fucking thing down. Like, what are we fucking doing?
I agree with that. If you go in-house, if you go overly in-house, then it's the mom and pop shop stuff.
Right. Like that's the VT way. It's
like just leaving it in the will to the kids.
Yeah. You know what? Why don't we make Mike O'Kane and Stein Spring offensive coordinator? That's the ticket. O'Kane Spring offense. No. You stop.
Yeah.
It's in the starting of our 2 Deep show, but like this isn't some rinky dink ass program. You're not supposed to do this type of shit. It has become that, but it's not supposed to be that.
I think Virginia Tech is at. I think you need to look at like sitting G5 head coach. I think you need to get to that point. You need to sell somebody. You need to pay up. You need to go big. You need somebody with some serious experience here. And that is not an unproven method. It has happened plenty of times by big programs. And I also think Virginia Tech has enough of a brand name to be able to attract some coaches to do stuff like that, especially in today's day and age, like we just talked about earlier in the podcast. Like with the craziness that is NIL, transfer portal, all that, some of these guys aren't going to want to be head coaches. Some of them might want to go to that coordinator role, especially if you can pay them what they're getting paid or more. So I think you really do need to shoot for the stars here.
No, you do. And I don't think DC is not coming from in-house. So
I don't think so either.
Be that as it may. But if you make 3 firings and then you literally hire 2 guys that were on the staff that just went 6-6 2 years in a row, and this season was so disappointing, I just don't know if that's going to inspire a lot of hope. Like it doesn't inspire a lot of hope in me. One off, you could talk me into Jarrett Ferguson. You absolutely could. He's been a great Hokie. He's been around the program a long time, left, came back. He probably would do things differently, I would assume, than Dwight Galt. You're not going to hire someone who would do things exactly the same. Otherwise, you're not going to do it. But he was here. He was here. And the biggest detriment to any of these guys who have already been at Tech is that you were here at the same time that all the bullshit went down last season. Mm-hmm. And so I hope we can do better than Brent Davis, but maybe we can't. And if we can't, well, we better nail the defensive coordinator hire, Sam. That's all I can say.
Yep. You bet. I mean, it's a 1 year thing. You have one shot.
This is Brent Pry's. I don't want to say it's his last shot, but
it's his last shot.
We're right there, man. I mean, if you go 5-7 and 6-6 again next year, I have a feeling both the athletic director and the head coach will be looking for work. And with the schedule and the roster, that's likely. So you better do really well in the hire so we can not go 6-6 or 5-7.
Something interesting about the schedule. It'll be a new DC at Virginia Tech versus a new offensive coordinator at South Carolina first week. That's kind of interesting.
A lot of unknown. A lot of unknown there. All right, latest on the portal before we close out. Since we last recorded, Xavier Turner Bradshaw, he is in the portal. Mansour Delane, he is in the portal. Penix in the portal at cornerback. And then wide receiver Chance Fitzgerald is in the portal as well. Delane is already committed to LSU.
Mm-hmm.
Xavier Chaplin, who opted in last week, he's signed with Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
And it also looks like Braylon Moore might be headed to LSU, but that's not a done deal quite yet.
LSU loves some Hokie players, man. They've been trying to get these guys for a while. I don't know at UP. I never thought Mansour Delane was going to play for Virginia Tech.
I thought he would be in the NFL anyway, so it's not a huge loss in my head.
Okay.
Anyway.
Offensive line coach change, you're going to lose some guys. That's how this game works. Best of luck to them. All right. That's all you can say there. They're good players. I hope they do well in the SEC. I don't really know much about the other guys. It seems to be like a playing time thing, especially with Chance at the wide receiver position. It's a really crowded room. It's one that they've recruited very well. Go be great, but it's probably not going to happen here.
All of a sudden, the wide receiver room goes from way overpacked to 5 guys that are established and 3 incoming freshmen.
Yeah.
And the established guys, 2 of them are Brody Adams and Chance Wiggins, who have yet to log anything real. Yeah. So it's really 3 established guys and 5 unknowns. So the wide receiver room is massive facelift. Tucker Holloway's the most experienced, oldest guy in the room at this point, with Aiden Green coming in behind him, and we know how young he is. So it's very interesting there. In terms of cornerback, when you lose Delane, you're probably losing Strong to the draft, although I don't know exactly what's going on there. And then Penix, who was a young corner, but nevertheless a corner, getting a little thinner there. We have guys like Lovett and Braylon Johnson and Christian Williams and Thomas Williams. So another area, though, that you might want to attack the portal in. Right now, Sam, I only count 68 scholarship guys. I know that scholarships are changing. I'm talking about last year. Yeah. Guys who were on scholarship last year and coming back for this year, 68. That's very – we've got a lot of work to do, man.
24 incoming freshmen, something like that?
19.
No,
I'm including the incoming freshmen in that.
Oh, you are? Oh, that's fun. That's fun.
So that's 17 spots to get to 85 and then 37 spots to get to 105.
It'd be really nice if we had position coaches to be able to recruit these guys.
That's what I'm saying. We gotta make some hires.
Pete, I know we're running long here, but it's been an awesome show. I will point out one thing. We are about 2 weeks away from the NFL doing their round of firings. What do they call it? Like Black Monday or something?
Right. Black Monday.
There could be some open guys from there. That's something to look at. This is the transfer portal lasts a long time, right? The coaching carousel lasts a long time too. I'm just going to point that out there. A lot of these big moves are made into January.
Only 10% of the portal is committed right now.
Yeah.
And it's still very early in this process.
And I think also, I haven't heard a lot of smoke around Mose Phillips in terms of visits and stuff like that yet. Same with Kelly Lawson.
You're hinting at the fact that he could come back.
Same with Kelly. You haven't. Yes, they could. They could. If you hire a guy and they like that guy, come back, they could. So I'm just
not Mansour, not Chaplin, but some of these other guys could potentially come back. When they enter the portal, you assume that they leave, but you don't know. If you hire a coach that they love, maybe they'll come back. But we need to hire some coaches. And James Gilmore just commented, probably one O-line figured out the fastest for recruiting. And I agree, because we don't need 1 or 2. We need 4 or 5.
Yeah. You're in a number. You have a serious numbers issue on offensive line. The other positions, you can field a team and a practice squad. Yeah. Offensive line, no, they're in some serious trouble right there.
I would guess that Virginia Tech has never been a team that's gone out and gotten a dozen guys in the portal. That's just not how we've operated. We've gotten 7, 8, 9 at the most, something like that. This will be the exception. I mean, just from a necessity standpoint, like I'm telling you, I'm thinking it's 17 right now. Like just to get to 85. Just to get
Yeah,
to 85. So
like doing the mental math in my head, dude, you might be pushing 20.
and it could take until June to get to that 20.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to bring in 10
Let's start with
tomorrow.
one. Let's start with one.
One would be good. One would be good. All right, that's going to do it for VT Corner, and that's going to do it for the podcast. We've got bowl games. One of them already happened, but they're starting this week. FCS playoffs are in full swing. Lots of college football going on. This was a great episode. Thank you to Casey and Billy for coming on to talk about the playoff. I cannot wait for Friday and Saturday. It's going to be so much fun. And we'll be awaiting Virginia Tech news. Sam and I will be coming back with a 2-deep episode. We're not exactly sure when. Tail end of this week. I'm talking to him about that soon enough, and we'll get that out to you. But until next time, make sure you're subscribed and go Hokies.
Go Hokies.